Once upon a time, long before boomboxes and Bluetooth speakers, there was a different way we Americans listened to our favorite tunes. It required at first a nickel, later a dime, finally a quarter, but was always a small price to pay for the reward of hearing your song blasted over the loudspeakers for all to listen. Here in Wichita Falls, perhaps no one recalls those days or that special music machine more fondly than Joe Martin.
I want to see some of these jukeboxes and hear the stories behind them.
Let's take a look.
Okay, so this is a rockola. It has to have something to do with rock and roll.
You know, a lot of people think that. However, the founder of the company, this is his name, and it was pronounced Rockola.
Rockola.
David C. Rockola founded the company.
It has nothing to do with rock?
About 30 years before rock and roll came about. But a lot of people think that means rock and roll.
From Rockolas to Seabergs, Joe Martin's amassed quite the collection of jukeboxes over the last 30 years. It's a passion that began in, as he calls them, the simpler days. Days when he was just a child at his uncle's cafe.
This is a 1948, and it has special meaning to me because back in the mid-50s in Denton, where I grew up, my uncle had a little cafe on the square there in Denton. And the very first jukebox I ever played was identical to this. I was about 5 or 6 years old in the middle.
About that tall, right?
About this tall. Barely could see him, but I could get my finger up there and push the button.
I gotta see. Okay, so all you could have seen was this right here.
The little curtain.
Looks like a stage.
Absolutely. It was just so fascinating. The colored lights. It mesmerized me, and I think it planted the seed that I wanted to someday own some jukeboxes.
Are you still mesmerized?
Absolutely.
You're on Texoma's Heart of Rock and Roll, where you always hear a better song on compact Laserdisc. Good morning, straight up 10 o'clock, and I'm Mad Joe Martin.
KKQB, Wichita Falls.
Long before Joe went crazy for jukeboxes, he was mad for a different medium of music, radio.
Joe Martin, TV 103.
Joe Martin, better known as Mad Martin, first graced the airwaves of KTRN, the mighty 1290, way back in 1970. He spent decades on air, and even though he's retired from radio now, he still loves that old-time rock and roll. And if he's not DJing a retro party or a class reunion, then he's probably working on the jukebox collection that's taken over his home.
Did you always know that you wanted to be involved in radio and music?
I think at age 6 or 7, my father and I went downtown to Sears in Denton, and right across the street was KD&T Radio. And I said, Dad, let's go over there and look up. And we got over there in front of the station, and the DJ motioned us to come up. And I got to stand in that control room and watch that disc jockey as he played that Buddy Holly record, turned those big knobs, and sounded like he was having so much fun. I think the seed was planted that day.
Found in almost any soda fountain, diner, or truck stop across the country, the jukebox became an essential part of American culture for generations of youth. These times may be a distant memory for some, but for Joe Martin, it's much more than a memory. It's a symbol of his journey.
I think it helps to keep me sane, and it also gives me an opportunity to reflect on my past. I think each song that I played on the radio all those decades has a story, and I get to relive that story every time I play it in here.
Looking for more stories like this one? Just hit the subscribe button for more great stories about Texas and Texans.